Welcome. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Ken DeSessa from Revelwood. And of course, Revelwood is a Workday Adaptive Planning business partner, which basically means we help implement a solution. We help work with customers to go through the process of seeing demonstrations, scoping out implementations, et cetera. A few quick notes as we get going. We should be finished in 45 minutes. During that time, you'll be muted just to avoid sort of the inevitable dog barking and all that kind of stuff. If you have any questions, there is a Q&A button on your screen. I think it's down in the bottom for you folks. Go ahead and ask any questions you'd like. I do go pretty fast. I may or may not be able to answer the question as we go along. I'll try to, but if I can, I certainly can get you the answer afterwards. So I know that some of you are on this call basically out of curiosity, maybe general education. Some are here because you have an initiative in this particular area. No matter what your reason, we certainly would appreciate you taking 15 minutes with us, maybe over the next few days for a quick chat. So myself, someone else, one of my colleagues may be reaching out to you with a 15-minute invite. I certainly hope you choose to just accept that and have a quick conversation with us. One final thing as we get going, and this is really important. The demo is really meant to give you a glimpse into adaptive planning. So it'll show you how you can better manage FP&A, but there's lots of capabilities that we won't see today. There's lots of detail behind things that we're not going to be able to get to because we do it in 45 minutes. Just know that what you see, what I try to cover today is kind of what I think people use most often and what's certainly what they start off with. Okay, so let's get moving. So adaptive planning is certainly a solution that is made for company-wide FP&A. It's meant to be sort of this single source of truth, if you will. It meets all of the needs of finance for things like planning, reporting, and analytics, allowing you to bring many data sources used for many different areas of your business into the solution. You know, it's a place to do everything, essentially. Now, I said, I hope you caught that, it's a place to bring in many different data solutions. People always ask me about integration, so I'll say it right now, it's a common question. The adaptive planning can integrate with just about any data source out there. It's been integrated with hundreds of systems, just about every general ledger system out there, from the biggest of big like SAP and Oracle to smaller systems like QuickBooks, right? So for now, put aside integration, knowing that it's pretty standard these days to be able to get data flowing from your systems into adaptive planning. It does have its own, what they call extract, transform, and going the wrong way, extract, transform, and load tool. So that makes it pretty easy. All of this is based on what's called a technology called Elastic Hypercube. Don't worry about what that is technically. I don't really want to talk about it technically. What this means to you as a user of the system is that all your information is in one platform, and it has built-in intelligence to be able to connect data and scale processing. So you're not going to be limited to dimensions. You're not going to be limited to number of scenarios that you might have or versions. You have no limitations on reports and dashboards. So don't worry about any of that stuff. It's really a very scalable solution that is allowed to give you a lot of capabilities. A few quick things about the solution itself. You know, one of the great things is that there's these third-party agencies out there that review these sorts of solutions. And one of the things that always happens is adaptive is always placed very high in things like ease of use and customer experience and customer satisfaction. As a matter of fact, adaptive planning has a 97% customer retention rating. That's unheard of in the industry. And to give you a statistic, I just heard from someone that came from another solution, won't say what that solution is, but they had a 60% turnover annually. That's only a 40% retention rating. So if you're out there looking at solutions, I really encourage you to explore the retention rating of any vendor that you might be looking at, because you don't want to be redoing a system or wanting to redo a system in a year after you have it. You want it to sit there and be in place for many, many years. The solution is industry agnostic, really. If you think about what we do, we build models in the solution that meet your business need, right? There are pre-built stuff in Adaptive, but it's all meant to be modified and geared towards your needs in your particular industries. Obviously, everyone does things differently in revenue planning, right? That's the secret sauce for everyone. So just understand and know that it's used across many, many industries. And right now, this customer base, it says 5,600, it's over 6,000 now. This was actually a number I haven't changed yet. It's from last year. So 6,000 customers now, adaptive planning. To just give you again an idea, another solution I heard of this morning, which is actually a really decent solution, just a little more complex, has 1,900 customers. So adaptive planning is really leading the pack in terms of customers and customer retention. Okay, so that's all I have for slideware, because I know how much you guys love slideware. So I'm going to jump right into the adaptive planning solution. So when you first go into adaptive planning, you can get to it from any browser, right? You just come to this screen and you log in. So whether you're at your computer, your cell phone, your desktop, whatever, you're just going to log in. And once you log in, you're going to come to this menu right here. Okay, this is your home page. You can customize this home page to look and contain materials that you want to have on that home page. For now, it's just pretty standard. And a lot of what you're going to do is it can be gotten from or accessed just via this menu right here. Now, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to tell you quickly about most of these. We can't go into detail about them, but I'm going to just go through some of the basics, and I'm going to tell you which ones we're going to cover in more detail as I go forward. Okay, so sheets. We're going to cover sheets a lot, but just so you know, sheets, think of them as your planning models. Think of them as your Excel spreadsheets where you enter data into a budget, into a forecast, those sorts of things. So that's sheets. Assumptions. Assumptions is a global place to keep assumption numbers. So you might have a inflation rate that you want to apply to certain things, and you want to do that globally. You may have a calculation for a standard personnel raise that you want to apply everywhere in the system. That's done at the global assumption level. And the beauty about that is you enter it in one place and it's filtered throughout the entire system that uses it. You don't have to go into individual tabs or individual spreadsheets to be able to do stuff like that. Reports we're going to go into. These are your, what I call web-based reports. Maybe they're more what you think of as traditional column row sort of things. Dashboards, I think that's self-explanatory, and we're going to go into that as well. The three areas, by the way, are sheets, reports, and dashboards that we're going to go into heavily here today. Consolidation, if you actually do a true accounting consolidation, like having trading accounts, doing eliminations and such, there's a consolidation engine. Process and workflow kind of go together. If you want to give your users a guided experience, like a task list that they follow, step 1, step 2, step 3, you build it in process and workflow. Formula is pretty self-explanatory. Modeling is kind of like the back end of adaptive planning. It's where you administer most of the system, other than here where you do security. I'm going to go ahead and go into this right now and just want to show you something within the back end. So with adaptive planning, first to understand, there is no coding. Everything is done with like configurations, drop-down boxes, or checklist type of thing. And I'm going to show you that in a second. But you can see here's where you define things like versions, right? Versions are where you have things like your working budget, or where you're doing your forecast, right? Working forecast, multiple versions of forecast. There's different ways and strategies for how you version, and we can help you understand how to do that based on how you might want to do business. So that's version. Time is where you define your levels. Most people are doing months rolling into quarters, rolling into years, but you can do daily, weekly, monthly, quarter, year. You can do anything you want there. So that's where you define all this stuff. Levels and attributes and dimensions. This is all where you define the back end, right? How you build up the system. And I want to show you real quick how kind of easy this is to use. So I'm going to go into levels here. And for demonstration purposes, we've defined our company to look like this. Total company has company A, company B, company C. Company A has operations, has multiple geographies and a breakdown in the United States. And that's just how we've defined it for demo purposes. Yours will look different, obviously. Okay. Now, if I wanted to add a new level, it's really kind of simple. I'm going to go right here. I'm just going to hit create new level. And this is how most of Adaptive works. When I said there's no coding, right? I'm going to give it a name. I'm just going to say demo level. I'm going to say where it rolls up to. Let's say it rolls up to United States. So we'll see it right in there under the rest of our things. So I click United States. Okay. And then there's a whole bunch of other things, currency being one of them. Adaptive fully supports, currency translations. And so I would define what currency this particular level is operating in. So we'll just leave that there for now and we'll save it. So there's going to be obviously a bunch of other options you can select. But my point is to show you that's how Adaptive operates really for the most part. And you can see what it did was it added this demo level right in here. Okay. And that rolls up to United States. So it was that quick and easy to add a new level. And if I went anywhere in that system, that level would exist. Of course, it would have no data, right? Because I haven't brought in data from my general ledger system with that level in it, but it would exist throughout the entire system. Now I'm just going to go ahead and delete that for now, just to keep it a little bit cleaner in my demonstration. Okay, so administration and managing that administration is very easy in Adaptive. So let's go ahead and go into the first element I really want to show you, which is sheets. Okay, so this is a typical sheet, standard sheet. Color coding is important, right? Any number that's in green means it's an actual. So it's come in from another system as an actual. So what we're seeing here is we've got fiscal year 2020 total actuals. Then we've got January, February, and March actuals. And the rest, you can see nothing else is green, is open for entry. So that means we're not really looking at an annual budget. What we're looking at is a forecast, right? You might call it your 3+9, 3 months of actuals, and then 9 months of forecasting. Anything in gray means that it's not open for normal just entry. It's locked for some reason. It could be locked for a number of reasons. It could be because that data in that cell is coming from a supporting schedule. It could be because it's based on a formula, okay, but it's locked for some reason. And of course, the light blue are just totals, subtotals, and anything in white is where I can actually physically enter a number, okay? You'll see this cell here has a triangle in the upper right. That's for notes. I can put a note into any cell simply by typing it in, okay? And what's important to know is that those notes are kept with that intersection of data. And what I mean by intersection of data is that $180 is at the intersection of my forecast for my level of sales north, April 2021, account 6311. So it's a very specific intersection. Wherever that was displayed, like on a report, you'd have the option to show that note. You don't have to, but you have the option. So that note kind of follows that piece of data around. So really easy to notes. Anything with a blue triangle, like in this bottom right, in this cell here, means there's a formula. So up here, you can see the formula. Now, this part of the formula highlighted after the hashtag is just a comment, right? It's not part of the formula, it's just a comment. I can explain what I want in that formula. The formulas in Adaptive are actually really easy, obviously different than what you're used to in Excel, but really easy because they use the language that you're going to understand, right? So what this says is take the account on my personnel sheet called FTE, okay? And now the only thing special to Adaptive is this ACCT, which is account, which is any piece of data is called an account in Adaptive speak. Personnel sheet is what you name it. Could be called workforce planning. It could be called anything. FTE, again, is what you would name it. Multiplied by telephone per head on my assumption sheet. Again, language that you would use. You might not call it telephone per head. You might call it, just TPH, if that's what you choose. But you'd be able to look at that formula and see what it is. And they're really easy customers always telling us how quickly they pick up on those formulas. Okay, so how do I use a sheet? Real simple. I'm going to enter just data in by typing it in. So I could type 100. Of course, there's a lot of shortcuts. All those shortcuts are here. Many of them are like Excel-like. I could do things like just copy that forward to the end. I'm going to go ahead and save that, and I'm saving it for a reason. But I can also not just enter them in month by month if I choose. I could actually go over here and enter in, say, at my year end. Maybe I know I want this to total $50,000 at the end of the year. So I enter $50,000, and what it does is it gives me a break back. It says, how do you want to break that back across your open months? A lot of different options, including a custom option, right? I can define it any way I want, but I'm just going to enter proportionally right now. So what it's done is it's taken that 50,000. It's smart enough to subtract out the actuals that already exist and spread the remaining proportionally based on what was already in there. And since the same number was in all those cells, it did it proportionally. I'm going to save that again for reasons that you'll see here in a second. Now, there's some other neat things I can do with this screen. Maybe I want to look at this screen differently. Maybe I'm a user and I say to myself, well, I'm entering my data in for April, but I don't remember what I had, what I did in April of last year. Well, instead of having to go to some report and look that up, I can simply go to this option, and it's allowing me to select how I want to see the data on this sheet. And so you can see for fiscal year 2020, I'm just showing by year. Maybe I want to look at that by month as well. So I put month, and once it refreshes, what I can do now is I can go back and I can see all the prior months for fiscal year 2020, right, all along here. So that just allows me to some flexibility in how I look and view things and how I plan. I could break my actuals, for example. If I show you that sheet again, I'm going to reset it to what it was, but I could actually break my current year down by quarter, and I can enter things by quarter if I want. I could hide whatever I want. So there's lots of different ways to be able to do this, but it's flexibility in the sheet and flexibility by user if you want to give it to them that way. Okay. Now, the reason I saved that data as we went along was for a couple of things. I want to show you this thing called Explore Cell. Explore Cell is great. It allows me to click on any cell and get more detailed information about that particular cell. Now, this was a data entry cell, right? So there's not that much info. We know that it's visible on these various sheets. We're looking at it from expenses, but it's also visible in these two other sheets. But the reason I wanted to show it to you here is I wanted to show you the view audit trail. So I can go into that cell, I can hit view audit trail, and it shows me the changes to that cell. As you can see right here, these top two are what I just changed. Where it started out, it was blank. I moved it to 100, I saved it, right? And then I planned by year, and I did that break back, and it went from 100 to 3,473. So there's a much more detailed audit trail experience in the solution, but that very quickly allows you to get to the audit trail for that very one specific piece of data. Okay. Now, one of the questions that came in, and I do want to answer this one, is as I was talking about actuals, or what you can enter data in, I said some of the cells are locked for data entry and they could come from a supporting schedule. So what I meant by that, so the question is what I meant by supporting schedule. So the idea in adaptive planning is to be able to take these sheets and sort of connect them together. And one of the best examples of that is workforce planning. So you see this count salary and wages. Very rarely do people just enter in a total number of salary and wages, $43,000. That $43,000 is actually coming from another sheet. And what's being shown here is the total of that sheet. So if I go into that Explore cell again, remember that, I can see that I create a formula that pulls that salary number from personnel in workforce planning. So workforce planning here is another sheet, okay? And it looks like this. Now you may notice that this sheet actually looks a little bit different than the other one. This is what we call the model sheet. It's like it allows us to collect records of data. If you'll notice, I've got a person with a whole bunch of information. In this case, their their salary information, their raise dates, their pension planning options, all that sort of stuff, if you need that stuff. It's collecting data on individual people. So it's kind of a unique a combination of being able to collect records as well as doing things in a multi-dimension fashion. So in this case, in this model sheet, I can have drop-down boxes, right? So select dates. I can have drop-down boxes that give me options for selecting different things. I could just have free-form comments. The bottom line is all the data that's being accumulated in this sheet for this level, in this version, right, is being accumulated. I'm going to leave that sheet and shown in this one cell. In this case, it's salary. The commissions is actually coming from that same sheet. It's just a different accumulation of data as well as bonus. So that's what I mean by supporting schedules. And your system will be made up of any number of supporting schedules. So some people, for example, travel and entertainment is something that's often planned at a detail level. So there's another sheet called travel and planning, right, or travel in this case, where I'm actually entering specific data to specific trips I'm taking. I'm putting in length of trip, I'm putting in whether I'm traveling international or domestic. And then the sheet is doing a whole bunch of calculations based on some defaults for hotel costs, airfare costs, et cetera. Right, again, all that data from that sheet is being accumulated and comes right back into here, into that particular intersection of data. Okay, so that's how these things are being brought together. Now, we're talking about sheets, so I do want to show you one last type of sheet. It's called a cube sheet. And so in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my sheet, and I'm going to look for my revenue sheet, product revenue sheet. And this here is a product revenue sheet. Now, this is a fully multi-dimensional cube sheet. You can see all my dimensions across the top that I've chosen to have show up there, right? And this allows me to either look at data and investigate data at a very granular level, or I could use it to enter data if I chose to. I don't think many people do because it's so detailed. But essentially, you see I've got a whole bunch of accounts. In this case, it's sales detail, revenue data, cost details about product, et cetera. And I'm looking at that across time. But maybe I want to look at all this different data across levels. This allows me to just sort of pivot this data. And now I'm looking at the exact same data, sales data, revenue data, cost data, across all the different levels. Okay, so I can do things, I can move those dimensions and drop them on different axes to pivot this data. Obviously, I could use the drop-down boxes as well. Okay, I could stack data. So I've got those accounts. Maybe I want to stack those accounts by level. I'm not sure you'd ever do that, but you might want to. So if I do that, you notice in my row set now, I've got all my details. So units by all my levels, price by all my levels, discount percent by all my levels. That's why I say I'm not sure you'd want to do that, but it's certainly something you can do. And of course, you could always get back to your default view by just hitting reset to default view. So that is a cube sheet. So between those three different types of sheets, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, depending on the data you're trying to collect, et cetera, you would use different sheets for different reasons. Okay, so moving on now, I hope I'm not going too quick. I want to move into dashboards. Okay, so dashboards obviously are a great way to, let's get rid of some of these things, to visualize data. Okay, and this is what a typical dashboard might look like. It's going to have your drop-down boxes allowing you to pick things like time and level, currency, et cetera. It's going to have your version up here to pick. But, you know, this is just about building it the way people want to see it. Let me click across here and just give you an idea of what these can look like. So you can have just free-form text and information that you need people to see, just to give you an idea of what different things how they might be put together. You can have waterfall charts. And not only can you have finance-oriented stuff, target versus actual, but you could have things like daily orders, just other types of sales data, right? Production data, if you're bringing in production data from manufacturing, for example. So you can show all kinds of different data. And within here, you can take snapshots and send snapshots of these dashboards out to people, right? You can do things like what I call PowerPoint view, right? Just being able to force people to look at kind of the big picture, if you will. Okay. You can drill into this data. So for example, I look at this revenue number, I can just click on it and immediately I'm given all the dimensions. I don't have to define drill paths. Adaptive in the background puts these together for you. So I can go from revenue to location of that revenue, look at Great Britain and look at the customers that are buying from them and look at the product, for example, that customer 5 is buying. I could then go back up and I can say, well, let me look at Canada, but I just want to see customers for Canada. Okay. And I want to see what customer 1 is buying. Okay. So there's all different ways you can do this. Pretty straightforward, but allows you quick access to the data. But also from a dashboard, you can actually drill into the data. So that's revenue data. And I go to explore that data. And guess where I'm going? I'm going to that product revenue sheet that we looked at earlier. So there's lots of ways to get to these different sheets. The idea behind Adaptive is allow you to get there quickly and easily, right? And here is that sheet we just looked at. Remember that cube sheet? And this is total company level, right? Because we were from our dashboard, we were at total company. But this is that exact sheet. So you can go from a dashboard into as much detail of the data as you need to. Okay. Now I'd like to show you how easy it is to build a, well, one more thing actually I want to show you before we get into building a dashboard. You can actually combine these dashboards with the sheets to do actual planning itself. Let's do total company. So in here, you'll see this particular dashboard combines the visualizations with the actual planning sheet. Now, remember, I showed you this as well. This was our modeled sheet we went into. This is the exact same sheet that we were looking at before, except it's represented in a dashboard. And you may do that because maybe someone just has to come in, they have to see some of their numbers, and they have to enter just a few pieces of information, and you just want to make it very easy, compact for them to get to it all. You can combine these sheets together. I think it's a great aspect of the whole dashboard feature. So how do you build a dashboard? Actually, really, really simple. I'm going to give it my name, just Ken. Select my level. Hit edit. Okay. This is all the visualizations I can have. This is my canvas. It's very easy. I slide the visualization I want onto the screen. This is a little file drawer here. This contains all the information and data I have within the system. So notice here are my general ledger accounts, and that's what we often think and talk about. But it's not just general ledger accounts. It's any data that I either bring in from a third-party system or calculate within the system, right? So a lot of times I'm calculating metrics and KPIs, et cetera, in the system itself. They're not coming from an outside system. So this gives me exposure to all the data. And then all I do is I just take this, I drag it on. Okay. On my right side, I have various formatting options. Like I can give it a name. Let's just call it OpEx. I want to break down this data. Right now, it's not broken down by anything. It's just showing me total company. So let's go ahead and break it down by, we'll do location. So there it is. I've created a quick OpEx by location. Okay. So pretty simple to do. I'll give you another example. I can drag a KPI on here and I can go and select maybe one of those KPIs that I showed you down here that's calculating the system. We can pick anything we want. Okay, so building a dashboard is simple. And the great thing about the dashboards, as soon as I click done, everything is connected. Remember, everything, I can now click and I can go to explore data, the detailed data, or I can start drilling down into one other aspect of the system. Real quick and easy to do. Okay, that's dashboards. I've got to move on. I've got 15 minutes and I'm keeping my eye on the time. Let's go into reports. Okay, so this is what a standard report might look like. When I say report, column rows, right? Can have an exposed dimensions across the top if you choose to. You can limit these to whatever you want. But it's really just about being interactive. We do build what I'll call static reports where they can't be changed. There's nothing to do but just look at the report. But more often than not, quite frankly, we're building reports that compare things and allow you to get to answers and drill into data while you're looking at it. You can have all the formatting, the color coding, et cetera, that are going to make the report look nice, different ways to do headers, et cetera. But the important part I want to show you about the report is the fact that I can get to other pieces of data and answers to my questions from the report itself. So for example, I might see that this is exceeded. This is a working budget versus my actuals, right? So I've exceeded my working budget by a lot in this one area. By, this says $2.7 million. I'm supposed to have $152,000. Obviously something I want to look into. So instead of now having to go to a bunch of other reports and say, okay, where in my organization was that occurring? I can basically pivot this report and say, well, for that specific account, let me look at it by my levels. Okay, so I just flipped the report. So now I'm looking at just that one account, 6450, right? By all my levels. And I can immediately see that, well, the roll up, yeah, okay, here's another roll up. These are all roll ups. My problem really resides in sales north. So what the heck happened? Well, another great part about Adaptive is I can bring in the transactions, the detailed transactions from my systems. And so I went into my Explore cell, which is a great part of the system. Again, I can't say enough about it. And I can drill into transactions right from the report. And you can quickly see that someone was supposed to have a lunch that cost $2,600 and someone just entered it in wrong and entered it in as $2.6 million. Right? Easy example we use for the demos. There may be many more transactions, but instead of having to look at all my transactions, I was immediately able to go to the level and the specific place that those transactions occurred and narrow it down. So now I have the answer for accounting, right? I can call them and say, instead of saying investigate this, I can say, here is the problem. And so it's a great part of the system is having reports that are very interactive. Okay. So I want to show you real quick how to build a report, because I always think ease of use is how I use this every day. You might be able to, your CFO asks you to quickly create a report that you don't have already. I need to go create that report. What do I do? Add new. Don't worry about it. I'm clicking matrix. There's different styles of report. Matrix is, pretty basic or straightforward. And I'm given a canvas. And again, all I'm going to do now is I'm going to drag stuff on that I want to see. Maybe I want to see my working budget versus my forecast. Okay. Maybe I want to do a standard variance on that. Maybe I want to do variances for not just a dollar figure, but I want to do a percentage as well. So I'm going to change that. I don't like obviously that long explanation up there. This is not good. So I'm just changing some of the properties of that. Bar percent. Okay. Let's say along the row set, let's just put our operating expenses I know there's good data in there. And maybe let's just put some metrics like gross margin, net income. Real easy to do formatting, like putting in spaces. Okay. Let's do some filtering. Let's look at 2021. Let's look at our levels. Let's look at total company, but let's also make our levels selectable. And that's why I drag it over to parameters. So anything in this parameter is going to have one of those drop-down boxes, right? So let's run this quickly. This is not going to be fancy. It's not going to be anything. Format it well, but it's very quickly allows you to get to some data. You notice the drop-down box I said we'd have because I moved it over to parameters. Right away, I can do any sort of pivoting that I want or drilling that I want into the various sheets, right? If I wanted to flip like we did before by level, I can do that. So now I'm looking at that one account by level, right? So there's all kinds of stuff that I could do here, including looking at notes, right? I don't have any notes in this particular report yet, but if I wanted to, I can move those, add a specific report note, or bring in notes from other things that I might have in the system, as I mentioned before. So it's that easy to create a report. Very straightforward. Anyone can do it. I can do snapshots, right? Send them out to people, download them to PDF, all those sorts of things. Okay. All right. As I go to start to wrap things up, I want to show you one more reporting aspect to adaptive planning, which people really love. It's called Office Connect. Office Connect combines Word, PowerPoint, and Excel with the data in adaptive planning. So what you're seeing on your screen now is Excel. You notice I have an Office Connect add-in. Okay. As I click link cells, anything that's highlighting, the data is coming from the adaptive planning system. It's been connected. Anything else is just normal Excel. So you'll see a normal Excel formula up here, right? Just normal Excel. So you're combining data with normal Excel. How easy is it to do? Look at taxes and benefits, this line right here. Because I'm connected to adaptive planning, I get to all the data, again, that we've been looking at within the system. Here's my taxes and benefits data, drag it over. You can see how that line turned blue. It's now connected. And as soon as I refresh this sheet, it's going to bring in the data. Okay. So the idea behind this report is this type of concept is that most people have these sort of board books or executive presentation books where they're always formatted the same way. People are expecting to see certain things, but you just need the data to be updated, right? So let's say right now I'm looking at February actuals trailing 6, right? If I go to my properties and say I've brought in the month of March, I have March actuals in here. I just change the March date. I say refresh. And now I'm going to refresh all sheets. That means all these tabs across the bottom. Okay. So it's going to take another second or two. But it's refreshed now all the data in this workbook to March 2020. 2021, I mean, that was prior year. And prior 6 in this report. Look at this report, March. Everything in here has now been updated to reflect March's actuals. So that's the beauty of this report, is it allows you to very quickly update it. And the exact same thing holds true for PowerPoint and Word. It kind of works the same way. I won't show you that now, but it kind of works the same way. Okay, the last thing I want to show you in adaptive planning, and we've got 5 minutes to do it, and we will have no problem doing that, is actually how you do what we would call an ad hoc or what if type of analysis. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get out of some of these things. Okay. Okay, so how would you do a what if? Well, I want to start by showing you a report. Okay, so this report is simply comparing two things. In this case, working budget, right? My version 1 and version 2, and I've selected working budget and budget pass 1. Now you'll notice there's no option in here for, let's call it demo what if. Okay, I'm going to rename a version demo what if. So that does not exist in either one of these right now, right? This is simply comparing these two things. Okay, so right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go create a new version that I'm going to make my changes in. So remember, we went to modeling, versions. Now what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to create an exact copy, a duplicate copy of my current forecast. So I hit create new, and we're going to call it demo what if. Okay. Now there's a whole bunch of different options. I'm not going to go through them right now, but what's important is that I'm going to base that on my forecast. And I'm going to click this button down here to make it sure it's a parameter on all the reports that I'm showing. So when we go back to the report, I need to be able to see that to select it. So I turn that on. Okay. So now when I hit save, what it's actually doing is it's copying my forecast into this new version called demo what if. So it's really copying millions of cells, right? Think about all the intersections of data in these solutions. Now you see this demo what if. Now I'm going to go back to this report. Okay. And what you're going to see now is that the drop-down box now contains demo what if. Okay. So I'm going to create, since I based it on my forecast, I'm going to select forecast and I'm going to select demo what if, and I'm going to run the report. Now, since I just created a duplicate copy, right? What I expect to see is my forecast and my demo what if have no variances anywhere through here. In other words, I've just created my what if scenario, and now I'm going to go make changes to my models and see how it impacts everything. Okay, so I want to do that by going to, let's go to our workforce planning sheet. We've seen that before, right? I want to make sure I make my changes in the version called demo what if. And I'm just simply going to add some people. Okay. I'm just going to simply add some people as if I'm deciding whether I want to hire 3 new people or not. Okay, we don't have to worry about what they say or anything. We just added basically 3 new people to Sales North in our demo what if. So that's our scenario here. Now, when I rerun my report, what you're now going to see, rerun that report? Yep. What I'm now going to see are all the variances between forecast and demo what if. So by adding those 3 headcounts, didn't impact revenue, didn't impact cost of goods, but obviously there was a whole bunch of other expenses that it impact, and it always showing me all the way down to my balance sheet, my cash flow, etc. So that's the concept of doing a what if. And that's how quickly I'm able to do them, by simply creating a new version, making the changes I want, and comparing those 2 versions. Okay, so that wraps it up for today. I appreciate you taking the time to attend. Remember, someone is going to be reaching out to you, asking for just a few minutes of your time. We'd love to have a quick conversation with you. We hope you choose to accept that. I hope you learned a lot. And for those people that submitted a Q&A, I see there's a couple of them. I will get back to you and answer those for you via email. Have a great day.